Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Our webinar is beginning. My name is Steve Love, President, CEO of the Dallas-Fort Worth Hospital Council, and we certainly appreciate you being here today for this educational webinar. It's going to be hosted in coordination with TrakURep, who is an associate member of the council. Today's topic is TrakURep, the Future of Pharmaceutical Management. The executives at TrakURep are going to detail a new app allowing doctors and pharmaceutical reps to communicate through a very secure built-in messaging interface by creating digital personal inventories for both the reps and the doctors. This product will ensure the appropriate accountability of drug samples and the traceability of samples from medical practices. We're delighted that we've got three speakers today, Mr. Herman Hill, Mr. Mark Piernick, and Dr. Carlton Pettis. Herman serves as the CEO at TrakURep, Mark is the Operations and Program Manager, and Dr. Pettis is an internal medicine specialist at Novant Health. We are really looking forward to their participation, and at this point, it's my privilege to turn it over to Mr. Herman Hill.
Well, good afternoon. I hope everybody can hear me quite well. And Steve, I want to thank you and thank Chris for allowing us the opportunity to present this novel concept, this platform TrakURep, to the Dallas-Fort Worth Hospital Council and the guests that are on the line today. As mentioned, I am the CEO of this wonderful platform. And we've created this platform to actually assist physicians in their practices, as well as be able to provide inventory to those patients who actually receive the samples from the physicians. I, along with my co-founder and co-CEO, Dr. Carlton Pettis, I would like for him to introduce himself.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for your time. I'm Dr. Carlton Pettis. I am a board-certified general internist in private practice and based in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Thank you, Dr. Pettis. And we'll have Mark Piernick introduce himself, who's our operations director.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Mark Piernick. I too is based in Charlotte, North Carolina. I come from an operations and program management background with over 20 years experience, both domestic and international business.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Dr. Piernick. Dr. Carlton Pettis. Thank you again, guys, for letting us share this wonderful platform with you today. And as Steve mentioned, TrakURep is the future of pharmaceutical management. It allows doctors and pharmaceutical reps to communicate through a private built-in messaging interface by creating digital personal inventories for doctors as well as pharmaceutical reps. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. The purpose of this meeting today is to introduce our platform. As mentioned, the Future of Pharmaceutical Management, sample management. The outcomes today we expect is to gain feedback from potential partners and level interest and continued dialogue. We also wanted to discuss the next steps of what those relationships could potentially look like. Next slide, please. Our agenda for the day will be the healthcare landscape, and we want to discuss the market that we're currently in, especially with the COVID atmosphere that we're in, that this platform we might find this platform to be quite useful at this time. And we're going to talk about TrakURep and how the platform works in giving a live demo at the very end of the presentation. Next slide, please. The patient is key in what we provide with this platform And with the rising cost of healthcare, especially in the time of COVID, we realized that the prescription cost of these patients is astronomical, and in providing them free samples from the pharmaceutical companies is key to what our platform actually provides. Next slide, please. Dr. Pettis?
Sure. Thank you very much again for everyone's time. We'll try to move this along expeditiously and give you the salient points. We really want to preserve time at the end for the live demonstrations. We think you'll be impressed. But start talking a little bit in terms of our company's mission and vision. Our company mission is to provide an efficient sample inventory management system, utilizing the latest technology to set a standard process for sample management. Our company emphasizes tracking, tracing, and compliance with local, state, and federal requirements. Our vision since inception has been to be the singular change agent for sample inventory management in the clinical environment, which requires real-time tracking and traceability of products. And now more than ever, especially in the COVID era, we seek to be the premier platform for credentialing representatives. Next slide, please. For the next few moments, I'll be speaking about the healthcare landscape. Next slide, please. So it has been said that the only thing constant in life is change, and this has never been more true in healthcare. Increasing regulation abounds for every aspect of clinical care, and this ever-changing market that's alluded to by the image in front of you really represents the continued regulation, the management of distribution channels, and the changing medical landscape. The old model, quite frankly, just won't do. The use of technology traditionally has lagged behind in healthcare, and we're seeing the rapid uptake of new healthcare technologies. We see TrakURep as being at the forefront of this new wave of technology and the wave of change. Next slide, please. So regulation rules the day, and those of us who are a certain age can attest there are tightening boundaries around the practice of medicine, and many different directives are dictating the management that must be in place for management of sample inventory. The FDA and Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services have provided more and more guidance on the management of distribution of samples. Next. So pharmaceutical sales representatives, in the age of COVID, we are having a lingering of this pandemic that many thought would probably have resolved by now. This has really called us more so to alert with regard to needing definitive solutions for credentialing of non-clinical parties within the clinical environment. This is vital really for the safe provision of care to our patients. Next. So biologics, as we all know, there are more and more biologics within the pharmaceutical realm. These samples tend to be fairly fastidious, and the traditional methods of distributing, storing, and accounting for samples must evolve from the loose, informal, and traditional methods that we've been using. Next. So technologic solutions, we've seen the rapid adoption, of course, of electronic medical records and web-based references that are really key to the day-to-day practice of medicine. And we're starting to focus more and more on mobile solutions, which allow the clinician to be more efficient and move freely within a dynamic clinical environment. And again, TrakURep stands at the forefront. So the marketplace, if we can go to the next slide. So here's the problem. Waste is a major factor when it comes to the overall cost of care and can be considered among the greatest threat to inefficient use of healthcare dollars spent in the modern care healthcare system. The slide before you illustrates the fact that 14%, a full 14% of the samples that currently exist in prescribers' closets are expired. It's a startling statistic. Efficient distribution of these samples and good sampling policies is really the key to overall risk management and the preservation of patient safety. The $2.2 billion wastebasket on the right side of this slide, we feel represents a significant missed opportunity to provide cost containment at the patient level and could and should be used to decrease the overall cost of care for patients. Our platform solves this problem by preventing the distribution of expired samples and alerting the clinician in real time to soon expiring inventory. Next slide, please. So what's in place currently? Well, a system that can only be described in three ways: inefficient, unscheduled, and non-compliant. It's inefficient in that there is no clear place and process in most offices. My office was certainly guilty of this prior to the implementation of TrakURep. And it is often unscheduled in that most clinicians can commiserate that it usually occurs in the midst of patient care hours and disrupts the clinical environment. It's non-compliant in that little, if any, documentation of the flow of samples, and it renders the clinic unprepared for any auditing or recall scenarios. The schematic before you gives you a rough general view of what I'm titling a process, and that's in quotes for a reason, because it is only loosely referred to as such. But generally speaking, a sample enters the office in the possession of the representative. That representative is, the sample is passed on to the clinician, which may or may not undertake a logging process. That sample is closed out of that particular patient, that particular clinician's inventory, may or may not be documented within the electronic healthcare record, and then that patient takes the sample home to consume it for follow-up visits. Next slide, please. So this slide demonstrates the decline in representative access to clinicians over the last decade. It's been fairly dramatic in that a full 44% decline has occurred in the available representative population over the last decade, which is startling. Sales representatives' access to prescribers has declined steadily, and this has only become more precipitous in the age of COVID. As you know, most representatives are not in the field currently. And again, we feel like TrakURep represents an opportunity to reintroduce this population. Why is this happening? Well, there are many probably factors involved, but let's focus on the regulatory aspect. And that aspect is such that most clinicians these days are practicing within closely regulated healthcare environments in which there's less autonomy, and managed care and institutional policies are dictating their behaviors. A lot of clinicians, such as myself, who are busy and seeing patients every day, may not necessarily see this as a negative. But again, we need to focus on the patients and realize that the fact that patients' lack of access to free samples makes that unavailable, and that is almost never available without a direct representative visit. Next slide, please. Next slide. So speaking about TrakURep, I think we may have missed a slide. I'm sorry if we go back to slide 17. There we are. Thank you. Quite simply, TrakURep is a sample management inventory system which is simple, efficient, and enables real-time tracking of the location of samples from production to distribution to the patient. Compliance is naturally built into our platform. This is an integrated technology to streamline the sampling process and natively comply with existing requirements and regulations while facilitating what has become a mandatory need for credentialing of representatives. Next slide, please. So our proposition is this: TrakURep stands in what was previously a chasm between the pharmaceutical industry and the clinical provision of care. Healthcare systems have requirements now for efficiencies and tracking the prescriber outcomes. And this is no more true than now in the age of value-based care and the implementation of ACOs. It's no longer good enough to provide good care, but you have to prove that you're providing cost-effective care. And TrakURep aids in this documentation effort. Lastly, TrakURep allows complete compliance with regulations. It provides a standardized solution for the efficient management and distribution of samples in the clinic, regardless of that clinic's size, the patient volume, or available staff. Next slide. So the overall function, and this is a general schematic view. TrakURep is based on the creation of user profiles for both the representative and the clinic. And this allows us to streamline the physical and the digital handoff of samples from one party to the other. So the institutions essentially will receive these samples into inventory, and then the institutions will in turn turn and dispense the samples to the patients. It's quite that simple. Next slide, please. So each profile within TrakURep has specific permissions in order to certify and validate this digital handoff we speak of and preserve the chain of custody of the samples. So to further clarify this policy, I'm going to now hand this off to Mark Piernik, who is our Chief of Operations, who will allow you to get a glimpse of TrakURep in action.
Great. Mark? Great. Thanks, Dr. Pettis.
Yes,
so
sir.
yes, I'm going to walk you guys through. If you could change the presenter to me, and everybody should be able to see my screen. And what I'm going to do is walk you through the process. For the sake of simplifying a little bit of time, I've already logged in, and you would just need your clinic username and your clinic password to get in. What screen you see here is our test company, so it can give you a full functionality of the product from our test company.
Hey, Mark?
Yes.
I don't think that I'm seeing you right now.
All right.
Hold on for a second.
There we go. How's that, everybody? Can you see my screen now?
Perfect.
Yes.
Wonderful. So as I was saying, I'm going to do a full demonstration of the product from our test company. What screen you see here, you can see my cursor as well, as you see I'm basically pressing this button right here called the profile screen. And what you notice from the profile screen, it'll have a picture of your company's logo, your clinic's logo, and your normal login and log out buttons. It'll have the name of your company, the email address that you want people to refer to for your company, the address, your typical phone number, things of that nature. Those three blue bars right in the center of the screen is a quick snapshot of how many samples you've dispensed at this clinic, how many you've received, and how many are currently in inventory. If you notice the red, yellow, and green bar at the bottom, that's a snapshot telling you about your expiration dates of your samples. Right now it's telling me that we have 6 samples that are going to expire within 31 days. I have 48 samples that will expire between 31 to 90 days, and 235 samples that will expire over 90 days. The color is for you to take notice now, because when we look at the inventory shortly in this demonstration, you'll notice that the pills will be color coded to represent, for quick reference, which ones are going to expire soon. So that's your general overall page. Now I'm going to go over to the middle button called samples. That's that. I'm going to receive some samples as if I was a rep. So basically the rep will put in their ID code. It's going to pull up a picture of the rep, and for part of the credentialing is they have to press "this is me" or "this is not me." So this is acknowledgement they have entered the correct code of their own personal ID code. Now they're going to be receiving in samples, let's say 10 pieces. What kind of 10 pieces? Well, you press sample and strength. You can go to the search bar and pick any name, anything that's currently in the FDA database. I chose Abilify 30 milligrams. And you're going to go over to the lot code, put in the lot code of the product. Expiration date, say it expires December of 2021. Done. I'm going to press the receive button. Now it's asking you to verify that you did press in the right lot number and expiration date and the right number of samples, and the description of the product is correct. You press yes. And this is all Wi-Fi enabled. So a nice strong Wi-Fi signal inside your clinic is good. Now I'm going to go over to the left-hand side and go over to history to show you that I'm going to refresh the screen, and it shows Abilify right at the top, 30 milligrams. What's in brackets is 10. If I press on that, it's going to tell me who received it in, what was the company that received it, how many samples, the lot number, the transaction ID for traceability purposes, and what day it was received. So now if you're a provider and you're working with a patient and you wanted to see what was in the inventory while you're working with the patient to see what you had in terms of free samples, you'll go over to this lower right-hand button and press inventory. When you press inventory, it'll show alphabetically all your samples of what you have in alphabetical order in terms of expiration date. So if I wanted to see this first one, Spiriva, and I press that, see the red pill, you know those are going to expire the soonest. If I pick Abilify here, it's a green pill. You know it's going to be over 90 days. So it's a quick reference tool to help you understand what's going to expire and what isn't. So let's pick Abilify again. So I picked Abilify, and there's many different types of Abilify currently in inventory. Let's choose the 20 milligram version. Okay, so it looks like we got plenty of those. We have 8 of them. So let's go dispense it. So what I do to dispense them is I go to that middle button again, hit samples, hit dispense, press the continue button. Your clinic has its own unique number. Then I'm going to go to Abilify. I'm going to pick the one that said 8 in stock. I'm going to select 2 of them, dispense. And now it's asking me, do I want to dispense any more? If I say yes, that means I can dispense anything else. Let's just pick something quickly, Eliquis. I'll pick 2 Eliquises. So basically this one patient that I picked Eliquis for and Abilify, I'm going to get 1 transaction ID number for both of those set of samples. That transaction ID number, which is 959 on this screen, is what you can put into your EHR database, and that links you from your EHR system to this system, so you stay HIPAA compliant and you have full traceability. So remember that number 959. I'm going to go to history now. I'm going to back up one screen and look at what I just dispensed. There's your Abilify and there's your Eliquis. Remember that number 959 I asked you to just keep a mental note of? There it is right there. It tells you what you dispensed, how many you dispensed, what the date was, and so forth. What's nice about that is if you're very busy and you don't have a lot of time updating your EHR database at that time, no worries. You could always go back to your history page and look at everything you dispensed. Always puts the most recent at the top. Now, if you have a large backlog or you're doing some research or you want to do a cycle count of your inventory, that button in the upper right-hand corner will send an email with an attachment of your recent dispenses or your recent products you received to your designated email address, so you can manage your inventory any way you like. One other neat feature that I like to also show you is your ability to manage your interactions with your representatives. This application allows you to use the app with secure messaging that you could talk back and forth between the reps and your clinic without having to be bothered by them knocking on the door, coming in while you're busy with a patient, or bothering your phone calls. So you could talk to all your reps, and when you work with them, have them only send things by messaging. So what you could easily do, see this rep that brought this Eliquis, I can go to the history. You don't have to remember a card or a name. You just got to remember what drug it is, and then go to your rep through the history, and then you can immediately go right to the messages and said, something like, when will you be here next? And then you start a nice little conversation. You can tell how many you need, what you may need, and you can manage it on your time what fits your schedule. So what we've already done is the app, as well as the representatives will download TrakURep 2. A section of the app is just for them, so they have the ability to communicate with their customers, which are you, the client. So we've quickly gone through the inventory, the profile, the samples, whether you receive or dispense, messaging, which is secure, only you can see it. There's some messages right there. And we've also gone through the history of both what was dispensed and what was received. That is a high-level review of all the features of TrakURep.
Now, Chris, if we could get back to the presentation.
Okay, great. And I think you're up next, Mr. Herman.
Thank you. Next slide. Next slide. As you can see, we've given you all an overview of what TrakURep potentially offers to your practice or to your systems, healthcare systems, with the goal in mind of being able to meet all the requirements that your hospital and your organizations need to meet, with keeping that patient in mind to be able to provide the inventory too. We hope that you've enjoyed the live demo that Mark gave, and just want to talk about, from our summary right now, what TrakURep provides. It provides a compliant sample inventory management, real-time tracking of those medications from factory production to the patient. We optimize the healthcare provider to the patient, to patient care, and facilitate the ability for tracking and tracing of all samples. So a very unique platform that we've created here. We hope that you guys have enjoyed the presentation that we've given. And if there are any questions, we're open to that. Next slide, please.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we do have some questions. Here's the first question. We've gotten a couple in already. How does TrakURep interface or integrate with EHRs?
Mark, you want to take that?
Sure. We, in order to stay HIPAA compliant, what we've done with our product is for each transaction of product out of TrakURep, you get a unique identification number. That unique identification number needs to go inside your EHR database, and that is the link. It's a number. That number is only used once ever at that clinic, and once it's used, it's locked. You put it into that patient's record. Instead of having to write the name of the drug, the expiration date, the lot number, the dosage, and whatever, you can save yourself a few minutes of time by just putting in that unique identification number that TrakURep has in their record, and you can always cross-reference it to TrakURep whenever you like.
Great, thanks. Hey, we have another question. It's kind of an administrative one. Will the PowerPoint and the session be recorded and forwarded to us? And their answer is yes. Chris Wilson does a great job with these, and he will forward it to all the people that have signed up and have registered with their email for this. So that will come out tomorrow. Here's another question. Who pays for TrakURep?
Dr. Pettis, we'll let you answer that question, and I'll piggyback on that as well.
Yeah, so with our current business model, we are being funded by funds from within the clinical environment, which is to say that the clinics that we currently have utilizing the platform are using it at minimal expense in order to implement it and to document the utility of such. Our long-term business model, meaning within the next months, is to transition from that into one in which it has minimal cost to the clinician and the healthcare system, and is primarily funded by the pharmaceutical companies.
And to add to that statement that Dr. Pettis just mentioned, there is a credentialing methodology which we've actually created that allows those reps to be able to create their own profile. And understanding the utility of the platform, we feel that it's important to pass those costs along to those pharmaceutical companies.
Thank you. Here's another question. Can you customize TrakURep?
And that answer to that question is it can be customized to your practice. Very short answer, and we can get more into details if there was a call or inquiry about the platform itself.
Here's another question. How many systems or physicians are currently using TrakURep?
Mark, I'll allow you to take that question if you don't mind.
Sure. The product is being used by a number of medical providers in the Charlotte metropolitan area. I'd say about 4 different companies are actively using the product as we speak, and we are definitely looking forward to expand outside of the Charlotte metro area. It covers about 20-something licenses throughout the area, and within each clinic there will be a device for each location where inventory is controlled.
And to give a little bit of additional information, that also includes clinics of various sizes, from solo practitioners all the way up to large independent healthcare groups here in town with multi-physicians, 50 or more physicians.
Great. Okay, thank you. Is the data that is input captured on a real-time basis?
Yes.
Sure, I'll answer that.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Mark.
the data is captured real time. Once it's inside once you see that transaction and that transaction ID, it's already logged. It already knows what samples were grabbed and where it was what clinic dispensed it. We know what rep had brought samples, what representative brought samples to the clinic, what day. So all you need to do is query the system, and it will give you up to the minute, up to the second updates.
And that is the beauty of what we actually provide with this platform, is the real-time tracking. So that's one of the unique features that we offer.
Great. I know Chris is checking the chat box, and he's also checking the question box. So we'll see if there are any remaining questions. Those have been great questions thus far. Looks like we've covered them all. I don't think there are any pending questions, but Herman, Mark, and Dr. Pettis, I'm going to turn it back over to you for any closing remarks or final thoughts or anything that you'd like to share with our participants. Thank you for an excellent presentation.
This is Dr. Pettis. Thank you for the compliment, and thank you very much for everyone's time and involvement. We're excited about the platform, and we're certainly available to have more substantive and specific conversations with any individuals who generate any interest. I just wanted to give one point of clarification that arose from my colleague Mark's presentation with regard to operations, and that's with regard to labor intensity. The first half of his entire demonstration with regard to recording lot and sample numbers is performed exclusively by the representative and verified by the clinician. So I wouldn't want anyone to walk away with the impression that this is something that's going to require additional time from clinical staff, as our aim is to increase efficiency and to allow you to have a much more robust documentation of your sample inventory.
Thank you, and thank you for that clarification. Very important point. Any final thoughts? I know we've heard from Dr. Pettis. Herman, do you or Mark have any final comments?
Yes, this is Herman. We'd like to first thank the Dallas-Fort Worth Hospital Council for giving us an opportunity, and for all the participants who actually were able to get on and hear and see our live demo. We're hoping that this provides and sparks some interest, and we can be reached through Chris Wilson if there's any potential concerns, questions, or thoughts behind what we've been actually presented here today.
Well, thank you. And on behalf of the Dallas-Fort Worth Hospital Council and all the people that have signed on and participated in this webinar, we want to thank you for an excellent presentation, a great Q&A session, and we appreciate you hosting and working with us on this presentation today. With that said, this will conclude the webinar, and thanks to all the participants.